I never thought I'd be the kind of person who gets left without a real explanation. But 2 years ago, my fiancé of almost 10 years just ended it, and only recently did I discover the real reason. His mother had been planning our breakup all along. Let me back up. We were together for almost a decade, 10 years. We got engaged, started planning the wedding, and finally agreed to try for a baby because we were both in our 30s and time was ticking. Everything felt solid. We had our ups and downs like any couple, but nothing major. I thought we were happy. Then around 2 years ago, he started acting off. At first it was subtle. He'd stop saying I love you before leaving for work. He started spending more nights out drinking with his friends than at home. He'd been struggling with his mental health since the COVID lockdown, so I told myself it was just a downward spiral. I tried to give him space, but it kept getting worse. One day I sat him down. I asked if everything was okay with him. He brushed it off, kept saying he was fine, so I changed the question. I asked if we were okay. He looked like he really didn't want to answer. That look, I knew something was wrong. I asked again, he paused, and in that moment I felt the ground fall out from under me. I asked if he still loved me. He said he loved me but wasn't in love with me anymore. That was it. Within a week he moved out, left about 90% of his belongings behind like he was just disappearing. I had to look at his stuff every day, his clothes, his books, his stupid collection of old video games. It was a constant reminder that he was gone. To say it hit me hard is an understatement. I spiraled. I was at the lowest point I've ever been in my life. I felt like there was something so wrong with me that he had to just leave without any warning. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. I kept replaying every conversation, every fight, every moment. I blamed myself. Then one night I tried to end it all. I honestly don't remember much, just the darkness and the relief I thought it would bring. But a friend checked on me and got me to a hospital before I did any serious damage. I spent some time in the psych ward. I hated it, but it probably saved my life. After I got out, I started therapy seriously. I cut contact with him completely. No calls, no texts, no checking his social media. I focused on getting better. It took months, but slowly I started to function again. I still felt awful about myself most of the time, but it got a little easier. I thought that was the end of it. I thought I'd never know why he really left. But months later, I found out the truth. His sister reached out to me through a mutual friend. She said she had to tell me something. She said their mother had been the one pushing for the breakup the whole time. According to her, his mother didn't want him to have a baby with me. She said I wasn't good enough, that I had too many mental health issues, that he deserved someone stable. And he just listened. He let his mother plan our breakup before he even told me he wanted space. I didn't scream, I didn't cry, I just sat there holding my phone, feeling numb. All that time I thought something was wrong with me. And it turned out his mother had been whispering in his ear for years, and he never once stood up for us. But that wasn't the only insane family betrayal I've heard about. Here's another one that still makes my blood boil just thinking about it. I'm an emergency medicine doctor. That's been my dream since I was 12 years old, and I made it happen. I work insane hours, I save lives, and I love every second of it. My husband is a civil engineer. He's ambivalent about his career, but he's passionate about his hobbies, our relationship, and his friends. We've been together for 7 years, married for 4. We had a good life. We bought our first condo together, we had a solid friend group, and I was finally hitting my stride at work. Everything felt like it was falling into place. Then about 14 months ago, my husband started pushing for a baby. He wanted one badly. I didn't. I was scared to tell him that because we'd never really disagreed before and I was a coward. So I kept my mouth shut and convinced myself it wouldn't be a huge sacrifice. I could make it work. I got pregnant. I was miserable from the start. Pregnancy did not suit me. I felt disconnected from everything, especially the baby. I sought out therapy. My therapist told me I was holding resentment against this unborn child because I was in a great spot in my career and was more worried about that than the pregnancy. She was right. I worked on it, and by month 6 I was actually excited. My husband and I were in a better place. My resentment and attitude had really hurt us. We started picking out names, planning the nursery. I let myself believe we were going to be okay. Then at 7 months our baby was born stillborn. I had horrible complications that left my chances of ever getting pregnant again at an incredibly low percent. I knew I'd never carry another baby. The physical trauma was bad enough, but the emotional trauma nearly broke me. I won't lie, I felt relieved at first and then guilty for feeling relieved and then just hollow. My husband was devastated. He cried in the hospital room. I held his hand and told him we'd get through this together. I thought we would. But about a month after the stillbirth, he came home from work one evening with this look on his face. I'd never seen him like that before. He sat me down on the couch and said, "I've been thinking about how we can still have a family." I said, "Me too. Maybe we can look into adoption or surrogacy or fostering." He cut me off. "No, I want to impregnate my friend." I thought I misheard him. "What? My friend Rachel, she's offered. She's healthy, she's younger than you. We could do it naturally or through a clinic. She said she'd carry the baby for us." I stared at him. "Are you serious?" "I've been talking to her about it for a few weeks. She's on board. It would be our baby, her body, our genetics." "Well, my genetics anyway, but you'd be the mother." I said, "I don't know her like that. She's your friend, not mine, and you've been planning this behind my back for weeks." He got defensive. "I didn't want to stress you out until I had a solid plan." This is the best option. You can't carry, but I still want a biological child. She's willing to help. I asked, what about adoption? That's a stranger's baby. This would be mine, ours. You'd be involved every step. I asked, and what about how I feel? I just lost a child. I nearly died, and you're already trying to replace that with your friend's womb. He stood up. You're being dramatic. I'm trying to fix this. You don't get to decide we can't have kids just because your body failed. Those words hit me like a punch. My body failed. I went into the bathroom and threw up. When I came out, he was on the phone. I heard him say, she's not on board yet, but I'll convince her. Don't worry, that was when everything changed. I stopped seeing him as my partner and started seeing him as someone who saw me as a broken incubator. He kept pushing for days. He brought up Rachel's age, her health, her willingness to do this for us. He even printed out a schedule of her ovulation cycle and laid it on the kitchen counter. I asked him to leave. He refused. I called his mother. She took his side. She said, he just wants a baby. You can't give him one. You should be grateful Rachel is willing to help. I didn't scream, I didn't cry, I just hung up and packed a bag. I moved into a hotel for a week. He texted me constantly, alternating between anger and pleading. He said he loved me. He said he would never touch Rachel without my permission. He said he'd drop the whole thing, but I couldn't unhear what he said. My body failed. He planned this behind my back. He printed out ovulation cycles. His mother agreed with him. When I finally went back to the condo to get the rest of my stuff, he was there. He looked pathetic, slumped on the couch. He said, I went to therapy. I realized I was grieving badly. I wasn't thinking clearly. Please come back. I asked if he had apologized to Rachel for dragging her into this. He said she's not mad, she understood. I asked if he had blocked her number. He said no, but I can. I said I want a divorce. He begged, he cried, he said he'd quit his job if that's what it took. He even showed me a text he'd sent to Rachel that said, I can't do this, I'm sorry, please don't contact me again. But I knew it was too late, the trust was gone. He had let his own grief and his friend's manipulation, or maybe his own selfishness, drive him to plan out a whole baby-making scheme without ever considering my feelings. I was just the broken uterus that needed to be replaced. The divorce was finalized 6 months later. I moved to a new city, took a job at a different hospital, and started over. I still think about it sometimes, not with anger anymore, but with sadness. I loved him. I thought we were going to grow old together. But when things got hard, he showed me exactly who he was. A man who would rather use his friend's body than sit with me in the grief. And I deserve better than that. We all do. But that's not the only story that still makes my blood boil. Here's another one, and this one involves a kid, a pregnancy, and a wife who was so sure she knew everything that she almost ruined our son's life. Our son just turned 16. He's a normal teenager, messy room, too much time on his phone, thinks he knows everything. He had a girlfriend, she's 16, almost 17. They broke up about a month ago. I didn't think much of it. Teenage relationships come and go. But then about 3 weeks ago, we got a call from her parents. They wanted to meet. They said it was urgent. We met at their house. Nice place, clean living room, coffee on the table. I knew something was wrong when they sat us down and didn't make small talk. The mother spoke first. She said her daughter was pregnant. She was slightly showing. The dates lined up with her relationship with our son. My wife went pale. I felt my stomach drop. We went into full panic mode. We waited a couple days before telling our son. He didn't know. When we sat him down in the kitchen and told him, he looked confused for a second, then he got angry. He said, it's not mine. I never fucked her. I didn't believe him. I know he's active. He asked me for condoms a while back, which I gave him. I was proud he was being responsible, but I also know teenagers lie, so I figured he was just scared. My wife, though, she was already planning. She started talking about how we'd support the baby, how we'd help him be a father, how we'd need to save money. She was already in full grandmother mode. I had a heart-to-heart with my son later that night. I told him, look, if it is yours, we'll figure it out, but you need to be honest with me. He looked me in the eye and said, Dad, I swear to God, we never had sex. I cheated on her. I've been seeing someone else, but me and her never did anything that could get her pregnant. I asked what he meant. He got embarrassed, turned red, and finally said they only ever did stuff that can't result in a baby and it was bad, so he never went further. He said he always rapped anyway and he'd asked me for restock, so the timeline didn't even match. I started to believe him. He's a shithead, yeah, and I raged at him for cheating on his girlfriend, but I believed him about the pregnancy. My wife didn't. She was furious with me. She said I was playing into his nonsense, that I was part of boy culture, that I was enabling him. She said children born into these situations need support, not denial. She was already picking out baby names in her head. Both families met again. My wife started the conversation by accepting that our son was the father. She was trying to figure out logistics, funding, custody arrangements. She was talking about how we'd help them finish school. The ex-girlfriend's parents were nodding along. My son sat there with his arms crossed, looking like he wanted to punch a wall. Then he spoke up. He said, I told you it's not mine, we never had sex. He was genuinely angry. He explained again about the only thing they ever did and how it was so bad he never went back for more. He said it like he was embarrassed but also fed up. The ex-girlfriend admitted they rarely did anything intimate. She described one specific event, the when and where. It was believable. Her story matched his, but my wife still wasn't convinced. She said, boys lie to get out of responsibility, you're just protecting him. I said, what if he's telling the truth? She snapped at me. You're part of the problem. You're letting him get away with this. Things got ugly. My wife and the ex's mother started talking about paternity tests, about lawyers, about child support. My son looked at me with this pleading look. I didn't know what to do. Then my son's best friend's mom called me. She said her son had told her something and she thought I should know. She said my son had been sneaking around with a boy from the soccer team. They'd been together for months. He wasn't cheating on his girlfriend with another girl. He was cheating with a guy. I sat down with my son again. I asked him if he was gay. He started crying. He said he didn't know, but he liked his friend from soccer. He said he never wanted to have sex with his girlfriend because he wasn't attracted to her. He said he was scared to tell us. I hugged him. I told him it was okay. I told him I loved him no matter what. Then I called my wife into the room. I said, our son is gay. He never had sex with his girlfriend. The baby is not his. My wife went silent. She looked at our son, who was still crying. She said, are you sure? He nodded. She sat down on the bed. She didn't say anything for a long time. Then she started crying too. Not happy tears, guilty tears. The paternity test confirmed it a week later. The baby's father was someone else, some kid from the ex-girlfriend's school. My son was cleared, but the damage was done. My wife had already told her whole family that she was going to be a grandma. She had to call them all back and explain. She had to apologize to our son for not believing him. But the hardest part was what she said to me. She said, I was so sure I was right. I couldn't imagine that he would lie to me about being straight. I just assumed he was like every other boy. I said, you assumed he was lying about everything. You didn't trust him, and you made me choose between you and him. She said she was sorry, but it took a long time for things to feel normal again. Our son is out now. He's dating his boyfriend. He's happy, and I'm glad I believed him. But I still think about how close we came to forcing him into a situation that wasn't his, all because his mother wanted a grandchild so bad she couldn't see the truth. Here's another one that still messes with my head. This one goes back a couple years, but I still think about it every time I hear someone say, it's not you, it's me. I was with my ex-fiancé for almost 10 years. 10 years. We started dating when I was 24 and he was 26. We moved in together after 2 years, got engaged after 5, and were actively planning our wedding. We'd finally agreed to try for a baby because we were both in our early 30s and the clock was ticking. I was excited. He seemed excited. We picked out names. We talked about how we decorate the nursery in the spare room. Then one day he started acting off. He stopped saying I love you before he left for work. He started coming home late, saying he was out drinking with his friends. He'd been struggling with his mental health since COVID lockdown, so I figured he was having a downward spiral. I tried to be patient. I gave him space. But after a few weeks, I couldn't ignore it anymore. I sat him down on a Saturday morning. We were in the kitchen. I was making coffee. He was scrolling on his phone, not looking at me. I asked if everything was okay with him. He brushed it off, said he was fine. I changed the question. I asked if we were okay. He paused. He looked at me like he really didn't want to answer. I asked again, and in that moment I knew. I asked if he still loved me. He said he loved me but wasn't in love with me anymore. That was it. Within a week he moved out. He left 90% of his belongings in our apartment. Clothes, books, a guitar, his gaming console. He said he'd come back for them later. But every day I walked past his stuff, that constant reminder that he was just gone. I spiraled hard. I'd never felt so broken. I kept replaying everything, trying to figure out what I did wrong. Was I not supportive enough? Was I too focused on my career? Did I push him into trying for a baby too fast? I couldn't sleep. I couldn't eat. I lost 15 pounds in a month. I tried to end it. I won't go into the details, but a friend found me in time and got me to a hospital. I spent 3 days in a psych ward. I was so ashamed. But also, I was still obsessed with the question, why did he leave? For 2 years, I didn't have an answer. I moved to a new apartment. I started therapy. I slowly put my life back together. I dated a little, but nothing serious. I stopped checking his social media. I thought I was moving on. Then a few months ago, I got a message from an old friend. We'll call her Melanie. She said she had something to tell me and asked if we could meet for coffee. I said yes. We met at a Starbucks near my office. Melanie looked nervous. She kept stirring her drink. Finally, she said, I know why Jacob left you. I felt my stomach drop. I asked how she knew. She said Jacob's new girlfriend, the one he started seeing about 3 months after we broke up, had gotten pregnant. They had a baby about a year ago. And Melanie had heard from a mutual friend that Jacob had admitted the only reason he left me was because he found out I couldn't have kids. I stared at her. What are you talking about? I don't have fertility issues. We never even tried. Melanie said. He told his friend that you had a condition. That you'd been diagnosed years ago and never told him. He said he was devastated because he really wanted children and he felt trapped. I didn't know whether to laugh or scream. I have never been diagnosed with any fertility issue. I never hid anything from him. I had regular checkups, normal cycles. The only thing I ever told him was that I wanted to wait until we were both ready. He agreed. I went home and sat on my couch for an hour staring at the wall. Then I called him. I hadn't spoken to him in 2 years. He answered on the 3rd ring. He sounded surprised. I said, Jacob, did you tell people I was infertile? There was a long silence. Then he said, who told you that? I said, that doesn't matter, did you? He said, it's complicated. I said, no, it's not. Did you lie about me to justify leaving me? He said, I was in a bad place. I didn't know how to tell you the truth. What was the truth? He said, I met someone at work. She got pregnant. I didn't plan it, but I wanted to be with her. I didn't know how to tell you, so I just made something up. I felt like I was going to throw up. I said, you made up a lie about me being infertile so you could play the victim, so you could tell your friends you had to leave because I was broken. He said, I'm sorry, I was a coward. I hung up. I sat there for another hour. Then I did something I'm not proud of, but I needed answers. I found his girlfriend's Facebook. She had a public profile. There were photos of a baby about 6 months old with his dark hair. The timeline matched. He'd gotten her pregnant before he even left me. He was cheating. And when she got pregnant, he decided to leave me, but he couldn't admit he was a cheater, so he invented a medical condition. I didn't confront him again. I didn't call his girlfriend. I just posted one thing on my own Facebook public with his name tagged. I wrote, for anyone who heard I was infertile, that was a lie my ex-fiancé made up to cover his affair and his new baby. I'm fine, he's a coward. Fuck off, Jacob. The comments were a mix of shock and support. A few mutual friends reached out privately saying they'd heard his story and now felt terrible for believing him. I didn't care about them. I cared about finally having the truth. It's been a few months now. I'm still in therapy. I still have moments where I get angry. But mostly, I'm relieved. For 2 years, I thought there was something so wrong with me that the man I loved had to invent a reason to leave. Turns out he was just a liar. And I know my body is fine. I got my period on schedule last week. I'm healthy. I'm going to freeze my eggs next month just in case, because I still want kids someday. Just not with a man who would rather destroy my reputation than admit he cheated. That story still stings, but it also gave me closure. I'm not the broken one, he is, but not every story had that kind of closure. Some were still unfolding in real time, and I was just trying to keep my head above water. I'm an emergency medicine doctor. That's my passion. It's been my dream since I was 12 years old, and I worked my ass off to get here. I met my husband 7 years ago, married for 4. He's a civil engineer. He's ambivalent about his career, but he pours everything into his hobbies, his friendships, and our relationship. I loved that about him at first. He was steady. He was warm. He made me feel like I had a soft place to land after 16-hour shifts in the ER. But about 14 months ago, everything started to shift. He started pushing me to get pregnant. He wanted a baby bad, and I didn't. I was finally hitting my stride at work. I'd just been promoted to attending physician. We'd bought our first condo. Our life was good, and it was busy, and it was ours. A baby didn't fit into that picture, not yet, but I was a coward. I didn't tell him how I really felt. We'd never really disagreed before, and I didn't want to start now. So I kept my mouth shut, told myself it wouldn't be a huge sacrifice, and we started trying. I got pregnant pretty fast, and I was miserable. From the moment I saw that positive test, I felt like I was drowning. My body didn't feel like my own. I was exhausted, nauseous, irritable. I couldn't focus at work. I'd be in the middle of a trauma case, and suddenly I'd forget what I was doing. I resented the pregnancy. I resented my husband for pushing me into it. I resented myself for not speaking up. I started seeing a therapist. She told me I was holding resentment against this baby because I was in a great spot in my career and I was more worried about that than my unborn child. She was right. I worked on it. By month 6, I had turned a corner. I was excited. We were in a better place. My husband and I started talking about names again. He painted the nursery a soft yellow. I bought a onesie with little foxes on it. I thought we were going to be okay. Then at 7 months, our daughter was born still. I don't want to go into the details of that night. I'll just say it was the worst moment of my life. And on top of that grief, I had complications, serious ones. The doctors told me my chances of ever getting pregnant again were incredibly low, like almost impossible low. After the initial shock, after the hospital stays and the tears and the funeral that shouldn't have existed, I honestly felt some relief. I know that sounds terrible, but I didn't want another pregnancy. I didn't want to go through that again. I wanted to focus on healing. I wanted to throw myself back into work. I wanted to find a new normal with my husband. He didn't take it well. He was devastated about the baby, of course. But when we got the news about my fertility, he shut down. He stopped talking to me. He started coming home late again, but this time it wasn't friends. It was just him sitting in his car in the driveway, staring at his phone. I asked him what was wrong. He said he was fine. I asked him if he was angry at me. He said no. But I could feel the distance growing between us like a crack in ice. Then about 3 weeks ago, he sat me down at the kitchen table. He had a serious look on his face. He said, I've been thinking a lot about our future. I said, okay. He said, I know you can't get pregnant, and I've accepted that, but I've been talking to my friend Rachel about it. Rachel, his coworker, they'd been working on a project together for about 6 months. She was divorced, no kids. I'd met her a few times at company events. She seemed nice enough. I said, what about Rachel? He said, she's willing to be a surrogate, but not with a donor. She wants to carry my child. Our child, yours and mine, biologically. I stared at him. You want me to use your sperm and her egg? He said, no, she wants to carry my baby. The baby would be mine and hers, but you would raise it with me. We would be the parents. I thought I misheard him. I asked him to repeat it. He said, we would impregnate Rachel with my sperm, and she would carry the baby for us. She's willing to do it out of friendship, no legal complications. She'll sign over all rights. I said, you want me to watch you knock up your coworker so we can raise her baby? He got defensive. It's not like that. It's a medical procedure. It's just surrogacy. We can't have a baby any other way. I said, that's not surrogacy. That's you having a baby with another woman and expecting me to play stepmom. He said, I don't see the difference. It would be our family. We argued for 2 hours. I told him I wasn't comfortable with it. I told him it felt like a betrayal. He said I was being selfish. He said I was taking away his chance to be a father. He said if I really loved him, I would find a way to support this. I didn't scream. I just sat there feeling the same familiar heaviness I felt during the pregnancy. That feeling of being trapped in someone else's plan for my life. I asked him to leave for the night. He went to Rachel's apartment. He texted me at midnight. She says she's still willing if you change your mind. I didn't respond. I spent the night staring at the ceiling. The next morning, I called my therapist. She told me I needed to set firm boundaries. She said this wasn't a compromise, it was a demand. And she asked me if I still wanted to be married to someone who would rather impregnate his friend than accept our reality. I didn't have an answer. I still don't. I love him, but I don't know if I can do this. And I don't know if I can forgive him for asking. That story didn't have a clean ending for me at the time, but it made me think about how often people twist the truth to get what they want. How quickly someone can decide what reality is without ever asking the person at the center of it. That same kind of certainty showed up in my own life not long after, except this time it was about my 16-year-old son. My son, let's call him Max, just turned 16. He had a girlfriend, same age, almost 17. They broke up about a month ago. I didn't pry. I figured teenage drama, whatever. Then 3 weeks ago, her parents called us. She was pregnant. She was already slightly showing, and the dates lined up with when she was still with Max. My wife went into full panic mode. I did too, honestly. We waited a couple days to tell Max. He didn't know. I sat him down in the living room, and my wife stood behind me with her arms crossed. I said, Max, your ex-girlfriend is pregnant. She's about 8 weeks along. He looked at me like I just told him we were moving to Antarctica. Then he said flatly, it's not mine. I never fucked her. I didn't believe him. I knew he was active. He'd asked me for condoms before, straight up, which I respected even though it was awkward as hell. But he kept saying they never did it, not once. I pressed him, and eventually he cracked and said he'd cheated on her with someone else. He wouldn't say who. I had a heart-to-heart with him later that night. I told him if he was the father, we'd figure it out. But he looked me in the eye and said, Dad, I always wrap it. I've asked you for restocks, remember, we never had sex. I swear, something in his voice made me believe him. My wife didn't. She said I was naive, that all teenage boys lie about sex. Both families met at a neutral place, a coffee shop, which was ridiculous given the topic. My wife started the conversation by just accepting that Max was the father. She was already talking about funding, shared custody, how we'd support them. I let her speak, but I could see Max's face turning red. He spoke up. It's not my baby, we never had sex. His ex-girlfriend looked at the table. Her parents looked uncomfortable. Then Max said something I have to rephrase. He said they only ever did a certain act that can't result in a baby, and it was so unsatisfactory that he never went any further with her. He didn't give details, but I knew what he meant. I raged at him later, so did my wife. But in that meeting, his ex-girlfriend admitted they rarely did anything physical. She named a specific time and place. It was believable, but also it was clearly not full intercourse. Still, my wife was convinced he was lying. I started to wonder. I asked Max again when we got home. I said, son, if you really didn't have sex with her, then who did you cheat with? Who were you with? He broke down. He told me he was seeing a boy from his soccer team. They'd been hooking up for months. He said he was gay, but he wasn't ready to tell anyone. He never slept with his ex because he wasn't attracted to her. He just went along with the relationship because it looked normal. I sat there stunned. Not because he was gay, I didn't care about that. But because my wife had been so convinced he was a liar and a deadbeat dad, and the whole time the truth was something else entirely. I told my wife that night. She didn't take it well. Not the gay part, she said she needed time, but the part about the pregnancy. She said, so you're saying we should just let that girl claim he's the father? We need a paternity test. We got one, it came back negative. Max wasn't the father. The ex-girlfriend later admitted she'd been with someone else after they broke up. She didn't know who the father was. She just assumed it was Max because he was the most recent. My wife was furious, not at the girl, at me. She said I'd enabled Max's boy culture, that I'd let him lie and cheat and get away with it. She said I was part of the problem. We fought for weeks. She wanted Max to take responsibility somehow to pay child support even though it wasn't his. I refused. In the end, Max came out publicly. He told his friends, his coaches. Most people were fine. The ex-girlfriend's family dropped the issue. My wife eventually came around, but it took time. Our marriage was strained. I kept thinking about that meeting at the coffee shop, how fast she decided he was guilty, how she didn't trust me, didn't trust her own son. I still think about it, about how easy it is to believe the worst in someone when you're scared. But Max is okay. He's dating that boy now, he's careful. And at least he's having protected sex with his boyfriend, no chance of another pregnancy. That's the only thing I can laugh about. That laugh didn't last long, because not long after I found myself in a situation that made me realize how much we hide from the people we love. This time it wasn't my son, it was me. I thought I knew what betrayal felt like, but nothing prepared me for what I learned 2 years after my ex-fiancé walked out the door. His name was Jacob. We'd been together for almost 10 years. 10 years of shared apartments, shared pets, shared dreams. We were in our early 30s and had finally agreed to try for a baby. I was so excited. I bought ovulation kits, started taking prenatal vitamins, even picked out names. And then he started acting weird. He stopped saying, I love you before leaving for work. He came home late, smelling like beer, saying he was out with friends. I thought it was his mental health. He'd been struggling since the lockdown, so I sat him down one night and asked if everything was okay. He brushed me off. I asked if we were okay. He paused, and in that pause I knew. He said he loved me but wasn't in love with me anymore. Within a week he was gone. He left behind clothes, books, a framed photo of us from a trip to the Grand Canyon. I stared at that photo every night. It felt like a lie. I spiraled. I lost weight, stopped eating, stopped sleeping. One night I took a bottle of pills and a bottle of wine and just wanted it to end. A friend found me in time. I spent 3 days in the hospital and another month in an outpatient program. I told myself I'd move on, that I'd be fine, but I never really got closure. He wouldn't answer my calls. He blocked me on everything. His friends gave vague answers. I convinced myself he'd just fallen out of love. Then 2 years later, a mutual friend reached out. She said she had something to tell me but didn't want to do it over the phone. We met at a coffee shop, same one where I'd had that conversation with my son's ex's family, funny enough. She sat down, ordered a latte, and said, "Jacob got married last month to a woman named Sarah. She's pregnant, 5 months along." I felt my face go numb. "Okay," I said, "that's fast." She shook her head. "It's not fast. He left you because she was already pregnant. He knocked her up when you two were still together. Then he waited until she was far enough along to be viable, and then he bilayed. He didn't want to pay child support and be with you. He wanted a clean break so he could play house with her." I didn't scream, I didn't cry, I just sat there and watched the foam in her latte settle. She showed me a Facebook post, a wedding photo, Jacob and a blonde woman with a visible bump. The caption said, "Our little family starts now." The date was 3 weeks ago. I did the math. She was 5 months pregnant at the wedding. That meant she got pregnant about a month before he left me. We were still trying for a baby at that point. I was taking ovulation tests. I was planning a nursery, and he was sleeping with someone else and getting her pregnant. I asked my friend if she was sure. She pulled up a text from Jacob's brother, drunk at the wedding, confirming everything. He told his family that he fell in love with Sarah and she got pregnant, and he didn't want to be with me while raising a baby with someone else. So he just left. Left me to clean up the mess of my own life, left me to almost die. I went home and opened my laptop. I found Sarah's Instagram. She posted belly updates, ultrasound pictures, a gender reveal. The due date was in 4 months. I looked at the timeline again. If she was 5 months pregnant at the wedding 2 weeks ago, that means conception was around early February 2 years ago. That's exactly when Jacob started pulling away. That's when he stopped saying I love you. He was sleeping with her, got her pregnant, and then manipulated me into thinking I was the problem. I called my therapist. She said I had every right to be angry, but she also warned me not to confront them. She said it would only hurt me more, but I couldn't let it go. I found his new email address and sent him a message. Just 2 sentences. "I know about Sarah. I know you left me because you got her pregnant. Fuck off, Jacob." He didn't reply, but his brother called me that night. He said Jacob had been crying, that he felt awful but didn't know how to tell me. I told his brother that if Jacob ever came near me again, I'd sue for emotional distress. I hung up, and then I felt a weird sense of peace. Not closure, because closure is a lie, but I finally knew the truth. It was never about me not being enough. It was about him being a coward. I spent the next few months focusing on myself. I started running. I deleted all his photos. I told my family the real story. My mom said she always hated him anyway. I laughed at that. Then I took a vacation to the beach by myself. I sat on the sand and watched the waves and thought about how I almost killed myself over a man who was already building a life with someone else. And I felt stupid for a minute. But then I felt grateful. Grateful I survived. Grateful I had a friend who found me in time. Grateful I could say his name without crying. I still think about the baby he's going to have, the one he wanted enough to destroy everything. I hope he's a good father. I don't care if he's happy. I just hope that kid never finds out how much pain their existence caused someone else. That's not the kid's fault. But Jacob, he can rot. So yeah, that's the real reason my ex left me. And I only found out 2 years later. But at least now I can say it out loud. And I can move on. I never imagined my husband would ask me to help him impregnate his friend. But there I was, sitting in our living room, staring at him like he'd just grown a second head. We'd been married for 4 years, together for 7. I'm an emergency medicine doctor. 12-year-old me would be proud. He's a civil engineer, nice enough, but his real passion is his hobbies, our relationship, his friends. I love him, I do, but my work is my life. It always has been. About 14 months ago, he started pushing for a baby. Hard, I wasn't ready. I was finally hitting my stride at work. We just bought our first condo, and the idea of a screaming infant in that tiny space made my chest tight. But I didn't tell him that. I was a coward. We'd never really disagreed before, so I swallowed my doubts and decided I could make it work. We got pregnant. I was miserable from day one. The morning sickness, the exhaustion, the constant worry, none of it suited me. I felt disconnected from everything, especially the pregnancy. I started seeing a therapist. She said I was holding resentment against the baby because I was in a great spot in my career and didn't want to give it up. She was right. I worked on it. By month 6, I was actually excited. My husband and I were in a better place. We picked out names. We painted the nursery a soft yellow. I felt the baby kick for the first time and cried. Then at 7 months, everything stopped. Our baby was born still. I don't use a softer word for it. The complications were severe. An infection, a hemorrhage, a surgery that left my chances of ever getting pregnant again at less than 5%. I knew deep down that I would never carry another child. After the initial shock, after the physical and emotional trauma, I felt something I didn't expect: relief. Not about losing the baby, that still kills me, but about my career. I could go back to work without guilt. I could save lives the way I was meant to. I told my husband. He didn't take it well. He said I was cold, that I didn't care about the baby we lost. We fought for weeks, but eventually we found a rhythm. We grieved together. We started to heal. Then, about a year later, he came home from work one night with a strange look on his face. He sat me down and said, "I've been thinking about our situation, about kids." I braced myself. I knew what was coming: adoption, surrogacy, something like that. I was open to it eventually, but that's not what he said. "I have a friend," he said. "Her name is Rachel. She works in my office. She's single, but she's always wanted to be a mother, and we've been talking. She said she'd be willing to carry our baby." I blinked. "Carry our baby like a surrogate?" "Sort of," he said, "but she doesn't want just the egg from you. She wants to be the biological mother. She wants to use her own egg." I felt my stomach drop. "So you want to impregnate your friend with your sperm?" He nodded like it was the most reasonable thing in the world. "It's the easiest way. We don't have to go through a clinic. We don't have to pay thousands of dollars. She's healthy, she's young, and she wants a baby. We can raise it together. She'll still be in its life as a family friend." I couldn't speak. I just stared at him. "She's already on board," he continued. "We talked about it. She said she'd be honored, and I think it would solve everything." I finally found my voice. "You talked about this with her before you talked to me. I wanted to see if it was even possible before I got your hopes up." I stood up. "My hopes? You think I want this? You want to knock up your coworker, have her carry your baby, and then we raise it together? And she's just going to be a family friend? Do you hear how insane that sounds?" He got defensive. "It's not insane, it's practical. You can't get pregnant. I still want a child, and she wants one too. It's a win-win." "It's a nightmare," I said. "I can't believe you're serious." I walked out. I went to the hospital and worked a double shift. I didn't come home until 3 a.m. He was asleep on the couch. I went to bed and stared at the ceiling until dawn. The next morning he tried to apologize, sort of. "I'm sorry I didn't talk to you first," he said, "but I think we should still consider it." I told him no, firmly. I said if he pushed this, we were done. He backed off, but I could tell he was resentful. He started spending more time with Rachel. She texted him constantly. He said it was about work, but I wasn't stupid. I found a message from her on his phone one night: "Can't wait to start a family with you." I confronted him. He said she was just excited about the idea and that he'd shut it down. I told him to block her. He did, reluctantly. Then Rachel started calling our home phone. I answered once. She said, "I know you're scared, but this could be beautiful. I just want to help." I hung up. I told my husband that if she called again, I would report her for harassment. He got angry and said I was being unreasonable. We fought for 3 months. He started sleeping in the guest room. I started sleeping at the hospital more often. Then one day he came home and said he'd quit his job. I was shocked. "Why?" "Because I realized I was being an idiot," he said. "Rachel was manipulating me. She knew I was vulnerable after the stillbirth, and she took advantage of that. I blocked her completely. I even changed my number." "I'm sorry." I wanted to believe him, I did, but the trust was gone. We went to couples therapy. The therapist said we needed to rebuild, but that it would take time. We're still trying. Some days are okay. Some days I look at him and see the man who asked me to let him impregnate his friend, and I feel sick. We adopted a dog instead, a golden retriever puppy. He named her Hope. I thought it was corny, but I didn't fight it. The puppy sleeps in our bed now, between us. It's not a baby, but it's something. I don't know if we'll make it. I don't know if I'll ever look at him the same way. But I learned something from this. Some people will surprise you with how far they'll go to get what they want. And some people will surprise you with how hard they'll fight to make it right. I'm still waiting to see which one my husband is. I never thought I'd be the dad whose son gets a girl pregnant at 16, but here we are. My son just turned 16. His ex-girlfriend is 16, almost 17. They broke up about a month ago. Then 3 weeks ago, her parents called us. She's pregnant. Slightly showing, the dates line up with when they were together. My wife and I went into full panic mode. We waited a couple of days to tell our son. He had no idea. When we sat him down, he looked us straight in the eye and said, "It's not mine, I never fucked her." I didn't believe him at first. I know he's active. He's asked me for condoms before. I've had the talk with him multiple times, but he kept insisting. He said they never did it. He said he cheated on her emotionally, not physically. I had a heart-to-heart with him. He's an absolute shithead sometimes, but something in his voice made me start to believe him. He said he always wraps up. He's asked for restocks regularly. He had the timeline down. My wife, on the other hand, didn't believe a word. She was already planning how we'd help raise the baby. Both families met at a coffee shop last week. My wife started the conversation by accepting that our son is the father. She was talking about funding childcare, all of it. My son spoke up, angry, saying it's not his baby. He said they never had sex. Then he made a comment I'll rephrase. Apparently they only ever did a certain act that can't result in a baby, and he found it unsatisfactory, so he never went further. I raged at him for being so crude and disrespectful. His ex-girlfriend admitted they rarely did anything. She described the event with a time and place. It sounded believable. I know my son is a liar sometimes, but I still believed him. My wife got furious at me. She said I was playing into his nonsense, part of the boy culture. She said children born from teenage pregnancies need support, not denial. That night after the meeting, I sat with my son in his room. I asked him point blank, "Tell me the truth, did you ever have sex with her?" He looked at his hands for a long time, then he said, "Dad, I'm gay." I felt the world tilt. He started crying. He said he'd been hiding it for 2 years. He only dated the girl because she was his best friend and he was scared. They never did anything because he wasn't attracted to her that way. The act he mentioned was just them awkwardly kissing. He said he cheated on her emotionally because he had a secret boyfriend from another school. I didn't scream, I hugged him. I told him I loved him no matter what. But I was also terrified of what my wife would say. I told her that night. She didn't take it well. She said he was lying to get out of responsibility. She said being gay didn't mean he couldn't have gotten the girl pregnant. I reminded her he's been asking for condoms, but for his boyfriend, not her. She didn't want to hear it. The next week, the ex-girlfriend's parents demanded a paternity test. My son agreed immediately. He even offered to pay for half. The results came back yesterday. He's not the father. The ex-girlfriend broke down and admitted she'd been sleeping with someone else during their relationship, a guy from her work. She thought it was his baby because of the timing. My wife hasn't apologized to my son yet. She's been sleeping in the guest room. She told me she feels betrayed by him for not telling her he's gay, by me for believing him, and by the girl for lying. I told her she needs to talk to him. She said she needs space. My son is relieved but scared. He came out to his boyfriend's parents last night. They were supportive. I'm proud of him, but I'm also exhausted. I never expected to be here defending my son's sexuality while his mother mourns a grandchild that was never his. We're going to family therapy next week. I hope we make it through, but if my wife can't accept our son for who he is, I don't know what happens next. I'm not losing him over this. I almost did when I didn't believe him at first, not again. That whole mess with my son made me think about another relationship disaster, my own. 2 years ago, my ex-fiancé just walked out after 10 years. I thought I knew why, but I was wrong. Here's what really happened. I'm 33 now, but back then I was 31, engaged to Jacob. He was 33. We'd been together since I was 21, almost 10 years. We had the whole life planned, wedding booked for June 2024, a down payment saved for a house, and we'd finally agreed to start trying for a baby. I was terrified and excited. My biological clock was ticking and Jacob said he was ready. Then around March 2023, something shifted. He stopped saying "I love you" before work. He started coming home late, smelling like beer, saying he was out with friends. He'd been struggling with his mental health since the pandemic, so I told myself it was just a phase. I'd ask him what was wrong and he'd say I'm fine, with that hollow voice that meant he wasn't. One night in April, I couldn't take it anymore. We were sitting on the couch watching TV, but he wasn't really watching. He was staring at his phone, not scrolling, just holding it. I turned off the TV and said, "Jacob, is everything okay with us?" He didn't answer at first. He just sat there and I saw his jaw tighten. I asked again, softer this time. He finally looked at me and said, "I love you, but I'm not in love with you anymore." That was it. Within a week, he moved out. He left 90% of his belongings in our apartment: clothes, books, his guitar. I'd come home and see his jacket hanging in the closet, and I'd just sit on the floor and cry. I spiraled hard. I couldn't eat. I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying every conversation, every fight, every moment I might have pushed him away. I thought there was something so fundamentally broken about me that he had to leave without warning. One night, I took a bottle of pills. I don't remember making the decision. I just remember waking up in the hospital with my best friend crying over me. I got help after that: therapy, medication, support groups. It took a year, but I started to feel like myself again. I threw myself into work. I'm a graphic designer, and I started dating casually. I never really got closure, though. Jacob had blocked me on everything. I didn't know why he left, and I was tired of wondering. Then last month, I got a message from a number I didn't recognize. It was Jacob's brother. He said Jacob wanted to talk, that he had something to tell me. I almost deleted it, but curiosity won. We met at a coffee shop near my old apartment. Jacob looked older, thinner. His eyes had that same hollow look from before he left. He sat down and didn't even order anything. He just started talking. He told me that before he left, he'd gone to a doctor for a routine checkup. They found something, a condition that made his sperm count nearly zero. He thought he was infertile. He was terrified that I would leave him if I found out, that our baby plans would fall apart, that he'd failed me as a husband before we even got married. So he left first, convinced he was doing me a favor. I sat there stunned. I asked him why he didn't just tell me. He said he was ashamed. He said he'd rather have me hate him than pity him. Then he told me the worst part. After we broke up, he went to a specialist. The diagnosis was wrong, a lab error. He was perfectly fertile. But by then, I'd already tried to kill myself, and he was too scared to come back. He said he'd been in therapy ever since, and he wanted to apologize in person. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just said, "You ruined my life over a lab error." He nodded. He said he knew. He said he'd never forgive himself. I told him I didn't need his forgiveness. I needed him to stay gone. I stood up, walked out, and blocked his number. That night, I sat on my couch and thought about how different things could have been if he just trusted me, if he just said, "I'm scared, I think something's wrong with me." We could have figured it out together. Instead, he made the decision for both of us, and I almost died because of it. I'm okay now. I'm seeing someone new, a guy who actually talks about his feelings. We're not planning a baby yet, but I'm not scared of the conversation. I learned that love can't survive silence. You have to say the hard things even when they hurt. And if Jacob ever reads this, I hope you're doing better, but I'm done carrying the weight of your secrets. Fuck off, Jacob.